Hey folks, Eddie from Brain Pulp TV, and it is April 28th, 2017, which means it is the release date for Amonkhet, the newest expansion from Magic Gathering, which also means that we are going to be doing some openings on the channel. We're pulling back. We are not doing quite as many this year as we've done in the past, but we do have an opening for you today. This is the second Planeswalker opening I've done. I've already done a Liliana Deathwielder Planeswalker. This is the Gideon Martial Paragon Planeswalker deck from the new Planeswalker decks that come out with each expansion. Now, I go over this in the Liliana Planeswalker deck opening, but in case you're watching this first, I will give you a brief explanation as to what the Planeswalker decks are if you never heard of them. Wizards used to come out with what they referred to as intro decks. There was a set of, I believe, 5 of them with each expansion. They were 60-card standard legal decks, and instead of coming out with those, they are now coming out with these Planeswalker decks, 2 per expansion, and they include, oddly enough, a Planeswalker in each of the decks. Now, keep in mind, the Planeswalkers you will get inside these Planeswalker decks are different from the ones you will open up in regular packs of Amonkhet. As well, too, there are 3 other cards in this deck that you will not get in regular packs. I will go over those when I go over the deck, but that is sort of like the benefit of getting a Planeswalker deck, is that you're going to get an exclusive Planeswalker and a few exclusive Planeswalker deck cards. Also of note that the Planeswalkers you get with these Planeswalker decks are nowhere near as powerful as the ones you will open up in regular Amonkhet packs. The Gideon, especially in the regular Amonkhet packs, is absolutely nuts. So they're not going to be powerful, but they are fun little decks. I usually sort of suggest, if you have a friend who wants to learn Magic, that this is not a bad jumping on point. Maybe, invest for less than $20 Canadian. I think it's about $17. You can give your friend a ready-to-play standard legal deck that won't, blow the doors off of any tournaments. Probably not even going to blow the doors off of an F&M, obviously. But it gives them something they can learn and play with. Also, if you haven't watched any of our episodes of the Mana Cave, Travis, Steve, and myself have several times battled it out with the previous Planeswalker decks that they've released. We're going to be doing that sometime in the next few weeks ahead with the Gideon and the Liliana Planeswalkers, so keep a lookout for that. Anyway, enough of the yakety schmackety. Let's open this sucker up, and I can show you what's inside. Now, I'll go through all the cards in the deck. I'm not going to read them all off. I'll read off just the rares in the deck, and then we can open up the 2 booster packs that also come in the Planeswalker decks. First, let's get good old Gideon out of the packaging here without damaging him. Hope I didn't damage him. Now, one thing I forgot to mention before is that the Planeswalkers you get with these Planeswalker decks are, in fact, foil, or premium, as Wizards refers to them as. So that is a nice little added bonus. And up until these Planeswalker decks were released, all the Planeswalker decks Planeswalkers were 6 costed. Now, Liliana is 7 costed, and Gideon is 5 costed. So there was an episode of the Brain Pulp Brainstorm where Travis and I sort of go in depth on the 2 Planeswalker decks, or at least the cards that are exclusive to them, and we give our thoughts on how we feel about the change to the CMC of these 2 Planeswalkers and if they make them more playable. I personally think Gideon is actually way more playable than I think any other Planeswalker from the Planeswalker deck so far. Not just because of its cost, but its abilities as well, too, are pretty nice. Speaking of those, let's go over what Gideon Martial Paragon's stats are here. For 4 and 1 white gets you a 5 loyalty Planeswalker. He has a +2, which is untap all creatures you control. Those creatures get +1/+1 until the end of turn. His 0 is, until the end of turn, Gideon Martial Paragon becomes a 5/5 human soldier creature with indestructible that's still a Planeswalker. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to him this turn. And his -10, these Planeswalkers do not come with ultimate effects that have emblems on them. They're always, well, so far they've always been effects, and this is no different. His -10 is creatures you control get +2/+2 until the end of turn. Tap all creatures your opponent controls. So yeah, it's probably the best Planeswalker that's come in the Planeswalker deck so far, in my opinion anyways. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. I've cherry-picked this particular one when we battle out on the Mana Cave because I think I need every advantage I can get on the Mana Cave. I have a bad losing streak when it comes to these Planeswalker decks. Speaking of the deck itself, inside here is the deck, and as you can see, these come in a nice little deck box. Let's just get rid of the packaging. And the best thing, one of the best things anyways, about these little boxes that come with the Planeswalker decks is that they're big enough to fit sleeved cards. So if you ever bought some of the dual decks in the past, as far as I know, they've never given you boxes that fit sleeved cards. And really, for most of us, if a box doesn't fit sleeved cards, it's not really a box. It's more of something that you're going to keep your dice in. So this is actually a nice little deck box for the deck. Now, here's the deck itself. I'm going to go over that in just a second. Let's quickly just go over the other stuff that comes in the Planeswalker decks. We have 2 packs of Amonkhet. We're going to be opening those up in a little while. And we also have this insert, which talks about Gideon. It has a deck list as well, too, and a fold-out with Big Sexy himself, Gideon Jura. And, yeah, so this is a nice little bonus that you get, as long as I don't rip it to shreds, trying to fold it back up, that you'll get with your Planeswalker deck. So if you ever need to tear them apart and want to put them back together, you'll have a reference as to how you can do that. You also get the quick reference card, which I know for most of us seems kind of silly to include, but there's always new players out there. So if you know a new player, maybe, give them one of your quick reference cards so they can keep beside them as they're trying to learn the game of Magic. Now, let's move on to the Planeswalker deck itself. And as I said before, I'm going to read off each of the cards, but I'm not going to fully read all the cards. I'm only going to fully read off the rares in this deck. They make it fairly easy to open up these particular decks here. So we start off with our first rare, which is Hazoret's Favor. For 2 and 1 red, gets you an enchantment. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may have target creature you control get +2/+0 and gain haste until the end of turn. If you do, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Then we have Glory-Bound Initiate. For 1 and 1 white, gets you a 3/1 human warrior. You may exert Glory-Bound Initiate as it attacks. When you do, it gets +1/+3 and gains lifelink until the end of turn. Exert is an exerted creature won't untap during your next untap step. Then we have what is common to all of the Planeswalker decks so far. Each of the Planeswalker decks come with some form of a tutor spell that will allow you to find your Planeswalker. This is no exception. And here we have Gideon's Resolve, which for 4 and 1 white gets you an enchantment. When Gideon's Resolve enters the battlefield, you may search your library and or graveyard for a card named Gideon Martial Paragon. That's also important to note, is that it's specific to this Planeswalker, not Gideon's Planeswalkers in general. Reveal it, put it in your hand. If you search your library this way, shuffle it. Creatures you control get +1/+1. So it's a very expensive, glorious anthem, but it does allow you to dig up your Planeswalker, which makes playing this deck more fun. You're going to get 2 copies of that. And now we get into the non-rare cards. We have Gustwalker. 3 of those. Nef Crop Entangler. Pathmaker Initiate. Honored Crop Captain. Couple of those. Companion of the Trials, which is one of the creatures that is exclusive to this deck. Each one of these Planeswalker decks comes with a creature that gets a special ability, providing you have any Gideon or any Planeswalker of the same deck on the field. In this case, Gideon. So, Companion of the Trials is a tutor. It's a 2/2 bird soldier creature with flying, of course. For 1 and 1 white, untap target creature. Activate this ability only if you control a Gideon Planeswalker, like I just mentioned. And you're going to get 3 of those. I do not know why they don't include full playsets of all of the Planeswalker deck exclusive cards in the Planeswalker decks. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. One sec, I have to clear my throat. Moving on, we have Devoted Cropmate, Graceful Cat. They give you 4 of those for some reason. And Crop Crasher, or On. 3 of those. Sparring Mummy, let's get some focus going. There we go. Tall Crop Elite. Hyena Pack, and Stone Quarry, another one of the cards which you will not be able to open up in regular Amonkhet packs. They always have mana fixing cards in these decks, and you're going to get 4 of those. And then a bunch of plains, and a bunch of, I'm guessing, mountains. Yes, indeed, mountains. Mountains of mountains. There we go. Now we move on to the enchantments, instants, and sorceries, or just the enchantments. Did we have anyway, whatever. We have the Cartouche of Zeal, which is one of Travis's favorite cartouches. Impeccable timing. One sec, as I nearly choked to death off camera. We have Impeccable Timing. We have Trial of Zeal, which is great to have when you have cartouches in your deck. Well, you got 3 of those in that. Electrify, and that is it. Yes, we end off with an Electrify. 2, in fact. So that is everything you will get inside the Gideon Planeswalker deck. And now it's time for what I think a lot of you are waiting for, which is opening up the booster packs that come with the Planeswalker deck. So let's just crack into the first one here. Let's see what we got. I'll just read off all of them. I won't completely read them off. I'll just read off the cards. Fling, which has got... I love the artwork in this card. I call this card Fastball Special in one of our spoiler videos. Mighty Leap, Ancient Crab, Pouncing Cheetah, Soul Stinger, Decision Paralysis, Honed Kopesh, Cartouche of Ambition, one of my favorite cartouches, I'll call it Neff Crop Entangler. Our first uncommon is By Force, Exemplar of Strength, Stir the Sands, and our rare in this Gideon Planeswalker deck pack is Aven Mind Sensor. It's one of the reprints that people were pretty excited for. For 2 and 1 white, gets you a 2/1 Bird Wizard. It's got Flash, Flying. If an opponent would search a library, that player searches the top 4 cards of that library instead. And holy shit! Okay, first of all, okay, let me just collect myself for a second. First of all, yeah, I do understand that these cards are divisive when it comes to their look. However, this is still Force of Will, for those of you who can't read the ridiculous text they use. This is one of I was going to call it inspirations. It's not. I can't even remember the name of it now. But this is one of the new chase cards from Amonkhet, and it's Force of Will, which is amazing. Anyways, for those of you unfamiliar with Force of Will is for 3 and 2 blue, gets you an instant. You may pay 1 life and exile a blue card from your hand rather than pay Force of Will's mana cost, counter target spell. Okay, yeah, this is nice. You know what? And my mind has completely blanked on what they're calling these now. So I'm sure everyone's screaming what they. I knew it before the video. This knocked the brains right out of my head. So we're gonna set that gently aside. Actually, we're gonna put you on top of there so you can be sort of featured for the rest of this video. Holy cow! Anyways, we have a forest and a wonderful Aven Initiate token. So that's great too. And we still got 1 pack to go. Okay, let's try to collect ourselves. I am desperately trying to remember what those are called. Because they're not expeditions, and they're not the masterworks or masterpieces. Nope, it's completely gone from my mind. Okay, I'll look that up. It'll be flashing on screen at some point, I'm sure. The first card in the second pack is Dejru's Resolve, Heckma Sentinels, Nimble Blade, Kenra, Cursed Minotaur, Shed Weakness, Stinging Shot, Wasteland Scorpion, Electrify, Those Who Serve, Gift of Paradise, and our first uncommon is Hazoret's Monument, followed by Trial of Ambition, one of my favorite trials, Weaver of Currents, and the final rare from the second pack in the Gideon's Planeswalker deck is Throne of the Pharaoh God. For 2, you get a legendary artifact. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses life equal to the number of tapped creatures you control, which is kind of a cool card. I would like to build a deck around this, actually, so I'm kind of happy that I got 1 copy of this. And we have a Mountain. Sadly, no second chase card. I can't believe I can't remember what they're called now. Anyways, and we have a Zombie token. So there you go, folks. That is what you can expect from a Gideon Marshall Paragon Planeswalker deck. Well, that's what you can this is what you can expect from the Planeswalker deck. The rest of this stuff, obviously, is going to vary. I hope you guys all open Invocations in your Planeswalker decks. That probably won't happen, but I was just happy with the Aven Mind Sensor. Invocations! Oh god, it suddenly popped in my head. Okay, fine. So I did an entire video on them, and I completely forgot what they were called. So the Force of Will Invocation completely stole the show with this video, and I couldn't be happier because of it. However, that is it for this opening video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you'd like to tell me about your experiences with the Planeswalker decks, or if you want to tell me about some of the pulls that you got, did you pull an Invocation as well too? Please leave that in the comments section below. You can also contact us and follow us on Twitter at BrainPulpTV, or you can follow and contact me directly on Twitter at GeekTragedy. And now that all that is said, take care everyone. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. It means a lot to us. May all your pulls be mythics, and I'll see you all very soon.